You ever wonder how two people can start out with the exact same dream, the same talent, pretty much the same everything, but end up in two completely different places in life? Well, today we're going to dive into a story that gets right to the heart of that question. It's a tale of two brilliant doctors, Akash and Rohan.
And this is the central puzzle we're going to try and solve together. It's a question about ambition, sure, but it's also about what really keeps us going through all the tough times. What sustains us? Their story, it offers a pretty profound answer.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with their story, then look at what really anchored their ambition. We'll see what happened when the praise and applause disappeared, and then check out their life's final ledger to understand this big idea, the Paramartha principle. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's go all the way back to the beginning. We need to look at the invisible forces that were driving these two guys, the deep-down motivations that were setting their life's course before they even knew it. You know, from the outside looking in, you couldn't tell them apart. They were both super smart, incredibly driven, and they both had this one all-consuming dream, becoming a doctor. They were on the exact same track, seemingly headed to the same place. But underneath all that, something was very, very different.
And that difference? It all boils down to this one really powerful idea, Paramartha. It's a Sanskrit word, and it means the ultimate good. But for our story, think of it as a drive that comes from a deep, quiet desire to serve other people. Just hang on to that idea, because it is the key to this whole thing.
And boom, here it is, the fork in the road. For Akash, that weight coat was a symbol of success. It was a pedestal, a ticket to fame, wealth, respect, all that external stuff. But for Rohan, that very same coat was a promise. It was a symbol of his duty to help others. See the difference? One was looking out for glory, the other was looking in for purpose.
So you've got these two different engines driving them. Now, let's see what happens when you throw them into the fire. We're heading into the crucible of their careers, medical residency. This is where those internal foundations get tested to their absolute breaking point. And make no mistake, the test was identical for both of them. The pressure was just relentless. We're talking 80-hour work weeks, fighting through bureaucratic nonsense, dealing with the absolute heartbreak of losing a patient, and a kind of fatigue that just crushes your soul. The world was throwing the exact same challenges at both of them.
And right here, this is where you start to see Akash's motivation begin to crumble. His whole drive was tied to getting that external validation, right? But in the trenches of residency, there are no standing ovations. There are no fancy articles written about you. And when that applause faded, his internal engine just started to sputter out. His purpose was totally conditional.
This table just lays it all out so clearly. Akash, running on external validation, started to see his patients as just obstacles in his day, hurdles to get over. And that led him straight into burnout and feeling empty. Rohan, though, he was running on that internal mission. He saw his patients as people who needed him. And that perspective, that simple shift, it sustained him through everything.
And that's the real kicker, isn't it? For Rohan, there was no gap between the hard work and the reward. The act of serving, even when it was difficult and thankless, that was the reward. It meant his fuel source was basically infinite because, well, there are always people who need help.
All right, let's jump forward in time. Decades have passed. We're at the end of their long, storied careers. And this is where we get to see the final accounting, the ultimate result of a lifetime spent walking down these two very different paths. This timeline really gives you that bird's eye view. They both start at the same place, medical school. But then you see the split. Akash goes for the glamorous, coveted residency, which leads to fame and fortune. Rohan chooses general medicine, a quieter path of just consistent service. And both of those paths lead right here to their final days. And in those final moments, what they valued couldn't be more different. Akash looked back on his life, and all he could see were these brittle trophies, the awards, the applause, the articles, and he realized they were hollow. Rohan looked back and saw something else entirely, a rich tapestry of human connection, the lives he touched, the hands he'd held. And if you were to chart that feeling, well, it would look exactly like this. The difference is just stark. Akash, the guy who got everything he thought he wanted, ended up feeling profoundly unsatisfied. And Rohan, who never chased the glory, found a deep, lasting peace. So what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway from their story? Well, that brings us right to the core lesson, what we're calling the Paramartha principle.
Really, what their lives show us is that there are two fundamental ways to approach ambition. There's path number one, the Akash way, chasing external validation, fame, status, the stuff the world can give you. And then there's path number two, the Rohan way, pursuing an internal mission, focusing on what you can give to the world. And this is the principle itself, plain and simple. A purpose that comes from inside you, one that's focused on serving something bigger than yourself, is just tougher. It's more resilient. It can handle the hard times because it doesn't need applause to survive. And as we saw with Rohan, it leads to a way, way deeper sense of fulfillment in the end.
And that kind of leaves us with one last, pretty big question to ask ourselves. What's your anchor? What's your Paramartha? Is the thing driving you all about those brittle trophies the world hands out? Or is it about weaving that rich tapestry of connection? The story of Akash and Rohan suggests that how you answer that question, well, it might just define everything.